Welcome back to the deep dive. We're doing something a little different today. Usually we're looking at, hard data, tech trends, or historical biographies, the kind of stuff that requires a lot of charts and graphs.
Lots of footnotes.
Exactly. But today we are taking a trip. We are going to a fictionalized version of New York City.
And it's a place the author describes as the United Nations in sneakers. Which, that sets the tone immediately, doesn't it?
It really does. But I want to be clear right off the bat. This isn't the New York of, say, Seinfeld or Friends. It's not about dating or rent control. Well, not directly, anyway.
No, this is much more internal. We are following the lives of 8 friends who are suffering from a very specific, very modern affliction.
That's a good way to put it. It's a fascinating case study in social psychology, really. We're looking at a satirical blog series titled Woke, When Good Intentions Go Too Far, a comedy of cultural overcompensation.
And that title, it really does the heavy lifting right. It tells you exactly what kind of ride you're in for.
It certainly sets the stage. The central conflict here isn't a villain. There's no bad guy. It's not a bad boss or a messy breakup. The villain, if you can even call it that, is their own crippling fear of offending one another.
Right. It's about social paralysis. We're looking at cultural exchange, the stuff that makes city life so rich and interesting, potlucks, office banter, just hanging out.
The everyday stuff.
The everyday stuff. And we're seeing what happens when you treat those normal interactions like a vault. The author uses this phrase, a tightrope strung high above the canyon of social anxiety.
That is such a vivid image. And I want to be clear for everyone listening. These characters aren't bad people. They aren't malicious. They aren't bigots. They aren't trying to exclude anyone.
Oh, quite the opposite. They are almost too good. They're deeply empathetic. They're highly educated, well-read. They know all the terminology. They've done the reading.
They've done the work, so to speak.
They've done all the work. But the premise of this entire saga is that they care so much about not getting it wrong that they essentially become incapable of getting it right. They can't function as human beings anymore.
The text describes them as a masterclass in how good intentions can spiral into comic chaos. So our mission today is to really unpack this. We have 16 specific situations, and that's what the author calls them, situations, which sounds so clinical.
It does, like they're diplomatic incidents or something.
Exactly. And we're going to walk through them from the early days of just mild awkwardness all the way to what the author calls geological levels of absurdity.
And I think the goal here isn't just to laugh at them, though I admit some of this is laugh out loud funny.
Oh, it is.
But we want to find the philosophical lesson underneath it all. It's really about the difference between sensitivity, which is good, it's necessary, and fear, which is completely paralyzing.
Right. And it's about how if you erase every little bit of texture to avoid causing offense, you end up with what they call the great neutral nada.
The great neutral nada. It sounds like a horror movie for extroverts, doesn't it? Just a beige room where nothing ever happens.
I love that phrase. But before we can get to the nada, we have to meet the architects of this beautiful disaster. The cast is described as the 8 mirrors of a global city. And reading through these bios, I honestly felt like I've met versions of these people.
Oh, absolutely. They are archetypes, but they're drawn with such a fine point. Each one represents a different facet of this modern anxiety.
So let's start with Alex Thompson. He's 32, a Midwestern accountant. And the text says he treats HR memos like sacred texts.
Alex is the embodiment of what you might call anticipatory guilt. His superpower is anticipation. He is constantly apologizing for offenses that haven't even happened yet.
He's preemptively apologizing for existing.
He is. He's constantly running a simulation in his head of the worst-case social scenario and trying to defuse bombs that only exist in his own imagination. He's the guy who apologizes for taking up space in an elevator that's half empty.
I think we all know in Alex that constant low-level hum of, I'm sorry, am I bothering you, in human form.
Exactly.
Then we have Priya Patel. She's 28, a software engineer from Mumbai. The description says she's sharp and direct, but she seems absolutely terrified of her own background.
Well, she's terrified of the cliche of her background. That's the important distinction. It's not that she doesn't love her culture. She's just so hyper-aware of how it gets flattened or stereotyped in the West that she overcorrects constantly.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, her corrections, which start as just gentle bits of education, tend to snowball into these unwanted TED Talks. She's so paralyzed by the fear of being seen as a representative for 1.4 billion people.
Instead of just being a person.
Right. She doesn't want to be the Indian friend. She wants to be a friend who happens to be Indian, but she enforces that distinction so aggressively that it becomes the only thing anyone can talk about. It backfires.
Okay, then there's Leo Chen. He's 45, a tea shop owner. He brings this quiet warmth, this dignity, but he believes so deeply in etiquette and gift-giving.
That he accidentally creates what the author calls an arms race of politeness.
An arms race of politeness. That's dangerous.
It's so dangerous because when generosity becomes a weapon of social anxiety, nobody wins. You end up in this cycle where accepting a gift feels like a defeat and giving one feels like a massive imposition. He's using politeness as a shield to keep everyone at a distance.
To make sure he never accidentally steps on a single toe.
Not a single one.
We also have Maria Gonzalez, a 35-year-old teacher from Mexico City. She's described as radiating energy, but she's also hyper-vigilant about microaggressions.
And she has this sharp humor, but it's a defensive humor. The text says she slices the room in half with it. She's always on guard, scanning the room for potential slights.
And then there's Jamal Okoro, 26, an engineering student from Lagos. Reading his bio, he sounds like the most fun, actually.
Oh, Jamal is charismatic and playful. He actually gets the absurdity of it all. He likes to call out insensitivity as a joke. He's trying to break the tension. He wants to play with the stereotypes to dismantle them from the inside.
But that doesn't work in this group.
It's the worst possible strategy for this group. Jokes don't land. They trigger panic attacks. The source material compares it to pulling a fire alarm to teach fire safety. Everyone just runs for the exits.
That's a perfect analogy.
Huh?
Okay, rounding out the group, we have Sophie Leclerc, 31, a Parisian curator.
And she is terrified of the French snob stereotype, absolutely petrified.
So she overcompensates in the other direction.
Aggressively so. She downplays her taste, her knowledge, her background, to the point where, as the text says, even drinking a glass of water feels like she's flexing, like it's a luxury she shouldn't flaunt.
And then Ahmed Khalil, a 42-year-old pediatrician from Cairo.
Hospitable, but pedantic. He turns every casual chat into a footnoted lecture because he's so desperate to avoid any misconceptions about the Middle East. He's fact-checking reality in real time.
And finally, Hiroshi Tanaka, 48, a manager from Tokyo. Precise, punctual.
And his instinctive bowing just completely clashes with American casualness. It creates this constant confusion between sincerity and, like, performance art. Nobody knows if he's being polite or satirical.
So you have this ecosystem. Everyone is trying to protect everyone else. But because they don't trust each other to just be human and messy, the whole thing collapses under its own moral weight.
It's a pressure cooker of kindness, and eventually it has to explode.
And that collapse begins, as so many social disasters do, with food. Let's look at part one, the basics of breakdown. This is situation number one, the potluck that ate itself.
This is the perfect entry point, the inciting incident. Alex is the host, and right out of the gate, he declares it a culturally neutral gathering.
Which is already a huge red flag. What does a culturally neutral party even look like? Does that even exist?
Well, according to Alex, it looks very, very bland. The decor is just white banners with "Welcome Everyone" printed on them.
And what font?
In Comic Sans, of course.
Of course. The source text actually calls Comic Sans the font equivalent of surrender.
That is brutal, but so accurate. It's the font of "Please don't hurt me." It screams a kind of desperate harmlessness. But the real issue, the real kind of disaster zone, is the food.
Everyone brings a dish, but they bring it with a disclaimer.
Yeah.
It's food plus an instruction manual on how to properly interpret it.
Right. Take Priya. She brings vegetable biryani, which is delicious, right? A wonderful dish. But she has taped a note to the dish.
A note taped to the Pyrex.
A typed note explaining that it is not curry, that it's not representative of all Indian food, and that it's not universally spicy. She's pre-apologizing for the food's existence. She's trying to control the narrative of the rice before anyone even takes a bite.
It's exhausting just to think about. And Li Wei brings dim sum.
But he's running a whisper campaign. He's going around the room, pulling people aside to quietly inform them that fortune cookies are actually an American invention, just so no one thinks he's peddling stereotypes.
He's undercutting his own contribution in real time. But the one that really got me was Alex's choice. He orders a plain cheese pizza.
The ultimate safe bet.
You'd think so, but then he spirals.
He completely panics. He has this moment of clarity, or what he thinks is clarity, in front of everyone.
He asks the room out loud, "Pizza is Italian. Am I appropriating Italian culture by serving this?" And then he keeps going, Should I have made apple pie? Wait, is that too nationalistic?
He's paralyzed by the semiotics of cheese and dough, and seeing Alex panic, of course, makes Hiroshi panic.
It's a chain reaction.
It's a domino effect of anxiety. Hiroshi immediately offers to retract the sushi he brought if the pizza is deemed problematic. He's offering to take his food back to his car.
And poor Maria. She brings enchiladas,
Yeah.
starts to say something about how authentic they are, and then just freezes.
Right, in the
Yeah.
middle of a sentence.
Yeah.
Because she wonders if saying amigos to the group is offensive, even though she is Mexican herself. She's policing her own mother tongue in her friend's living room.
And Ahmed has falafel, but he just pauses with the serving spoon in his hand, wondering if the pan-Arab nature of falafel erases national specificity.
Does it erase the specific culinary contributions of Egypt versus, say, Lebanon? This is what he's thinking about while his friends are getting hungry.
It's what the author calls the starvation seminar. They're all just staring at this table of delicious food from around the world like it's a diplomatic crisis waiting to happen.
They're afraid to eat because eating implies consumption, and consumption implies, well, something bad in their minds. Taking, enjoying.
So what do they end up eating?
Plain crackers
Plain crackers.
from a box in Alex's pantry because crackers are safe.
Crackers are the only thing that won't cause an international incident in Alex's living room. It's the lowest common denominator of nutrition.
It's food without history, without culture, without flavor. It is the perfect food for the great neutral nada.
This sets the tone perfectly. So from there, we move to situation 2, which takes us to the holiday season, the gift exchange nobody wanted.
Or, as they meticulously rebranded it, the anonymous appreciation exchange.
Why the rebrand?
Well, because Secret Santa has, religious connotations, and they wanted to strip out any potential for exclusion. The goal was to find universally thoughtful gifts.
Universally thoughtful just sounds like a paradox. How can something be specific enough to be thoughtful, but general enough to be universal?
It can't. That's the whole joke. And the result is just, it's painful to read about.
Okay, walk me through it.
So, Li Wei draws Sophie's name. Now, Sophie is French. A nice bottle of Bordeaux seems like a slam dunk, right? It's classic, it's elegant.
I would love that as a gift. It's thoughtful, it's appropriate.
But for a normal person, yes. But for Li Wei, it's a trap. He thinks it's a stereotype. Oh, the French person loves wine. He's worried she'll think he's reducing her entire cultural identity to a single beverage.
He's overthinking it to a painful degree.
So he panics. And instead of wine, he buys her herbal tea, with a long handwritten note explaining that he isn't assuming she drinks alcohol and wanted to provide a non-alcoholic, universally calming beverage.
And how does Sophie, the person terrified of being a French snob, react to this?
She overcompensates wildly. She gushes about the tea. She says, "Oh, this is so thoughtful, but wine would have been fine too. I'm not offended. Please don't think I'm offended."
She's trying so hard to prove she's not the snobby French woman that she makes it incredibly weird.
She's performing gratitude for a gift she didn't want just to protect Li Wei's feelings about her potential feelings. It's a multi-layered nightmare of politeness.
And it just goes on from there,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Maria gives Jamal a soccer ball.
Seems like a nice, fun gift for a young guy.
But Jamal immediately spirals. He worries that receiving a soccer ball reinforces athletic stereotypes about Africans, so he launches into this impromptu lecture about his engineering degree and his academic ambitions.
He feels the need to present his resume to defend against the implication of the soccer ball.
Exactly. Meanwhile, he gave Hiroshi a planner.
Oh no, because Hiroshi is Japanese and they're stereotypically organized.
That's the fear. Jamal has to explicitly clarify this is not because you are Japanese, it's just you seem like an organized person. He has to verbally decouple the gift from the recipient's identity.
And Alex gives Priya earbuds.
And has to add the disclaimer, not because you're in tech, I just thought you might like music. It's endless. Priya herself worries that the history book she got for Ahmed is problematic because it might have a chapter about pyramids.
The text says they spend a full hour just dissecting the intentions behind each gift.
An hour, and what's the outcome? It's genuinely tragic. No one keeps the gifts.
They all take them back.
They all take their own presents home. They come to a group consensus that self-appreciation is safest.
That is so deeply lonely. It's the absolute opposite of community. It's 8 people performing solitude in a room together.
It is. It's isolation that's been gift-wrapped to look like sensitivity. They're literally protecting each other from joy, from the simple act of receiving a gift.
Okay, this is bleak. Let's move on to situation 3. Movie night. Paused forever.
The selection process alone is a minefield. They narrow it down to 3 choices. a Bollywood rom-com, a French art film, and a quote-unquote neutral American comedy.
I'm guessing they can't get through 10 minutes of any of them.
Not even close. 10 minutes into the Bollywood film, Jamal pauses it. He turns to the group with a very serious face and asks, "Are we exoticizing this?"
He's worried that by enjoying the spectacle, the colors, the music, they are engaging in a colonial gaze.
Right, and of course that just kills the mood, so they switch to the French film. But before it even starts, Sophie apologizes preemptively for its potential slowness.
Defending her culture's cinema before anyone has a chance to criticize it.
And Hiroshi, trying to be helpful, says the slowness reminds him of the pacing of haiku. Then he immediately panics that he's reinforcing Asian minimalism stereotypes.
But we can't watch a foreign film. What about the neutral American comedy?
Well, it sparks a huge debate on whether slapstick humor is universal or if it's exclusionary to people with different physical abilities. Is laughing at someone falling down inherently ableist?
They're analyzing a pie-in-the-face gag like it's a doctoral thesis.
Exactly. So, in a moment of supposed genius, they decide to watch silent films. No dialogue, no risk.
But that doesn't work either.
It fails spectacularly because they start arguing about whether the gestures are culturally specific. Jamal interprets a simple ways as a specific African greeting, which triggers a chain reaction of mimed apologies and clarifications.
I love the visual of this group sitting in the dark, watching a Buster Keaton film, and frantically miming apologies to each other.
It's slapstick in real life, but they're too anxious to see the humor in it. Which brings us perfectly to situation 4, the greeting gauntlet.
This one is pure physical comedy. They all agree to meet in a park.
A simple meetup. But the greeting itself becomes an ordeal. Hiroshi, out of habit and politeness, bows to Alex.
And Alex, our Midwestern accountant who treats HR memos like sacred texts, tries to be culturally responsive.
And bows back. But he bows too hard, too low, too fast. He misjudges the distance and headbutts Hiroshi.
Ouch. That is the physical manifestation of trying too hard. It's a literal headache caused by overthinking.
And from that moment of impact, it's a complete spiral. It's a cycle of proposed and then immediately rejected gestures.
What do they try?
They try everything. Hugs. No. Too intimate might cross personal boundaries. Handshakes. Too formal feels corporate and Western-centric. Air kisses.
Sophie must have had an opinion on that.
Oh yeah, she vetoes it as too European, too pretentious. Then Alex, trying to save the day, suggests namaste.
And Priya, our guardian of South Asian culture, shuts that down immediately.
Force. That's Indian, she says, and you're doing it wrong. She's fiercely protective of a sacred gesture becoming, yoga studio slang. So they are frozen. They can't touch, they can't speak a greeting.
So what's the solution?
They eventually invent a synchronized group wave.
A synchronized group wave. What does that even look like?
The text says it looks like aquatic aerobics. They're all standing a few feet apart, waving at each other in unison with stiff, awkward motions. And of course, tourists start taking photos of them because it's such a bizarre spectacle.
They've become a tourist attraction of awkwardness. Okay, situation 5 wraps up this first part with coffee, the final boss. You'd think ordering coffee would be safe.
You'd think, but for this group, nothing is safe. They go to a cafe. Jamal steps up to order and says, "I'll have a black coffee." And then before the barista can even react, he immediately clarifies, "I mean the color, of course," not making a statement.
Oh no, he thinks the barista is going to misinterpret the word black.
He's so hyper-aware of language and its potential pitfalls that he's flagging his own coffee order for review. And then the rest of the group interrogates every single option on the menu.
Like what?
Chai. Is that cultural appropriation if you aren't South Asian? Oat milk. Does ordering a milk substitute mock the sacred status of cows in some cultures? Espresso? Is that too aggressive too? Italian?
The poor barista in all of this.
The text says the barista just dissociates, just stares into the middle distance, questioning every life choice that led them to this moment.
And what does the group end up drinking?
They toast with glasses of tap water to neutral hydration.
Neutral hydration. It's the liquid equivalent of plain crackers.
It is. You know, what's so interesting about this first batch of situations is the analysis the source provides. It says the deeper joke isn't that they don't care. It's that they care without trust.
That's the key, isn't it? They mistake discomfort for harm, and they mistake neutrality for respect.
Precisely. They are so afraid of getting it wrong that they forget the joy of getting it real.
The joy of getting it real. That's a powerful concept, because real human interaction is messy. It involves risk. You might say the wrong thing, you might headbutt your friend by accident.
Exactly. And without that risk, you just have plain crackers and neutral hydration. You have safety, but you have absolutely no connection.
Moving into part 2, the group decides they need to focus on celebration and wellness. Because surely those are positive things. You can't mess up wellness, can you?
You would think so. But for them, it's just a new arena for anxiety. This brings us to situation 6. The birthday bash blunder. It's Jamal's birthday.
And the goal, their stated mission, is a culturally inclusive celebration with zero assumptions.
Which is code for a party with no discernible features. It's held at Sophie's Loft because it's aesthetically neutral. White walls, minimalist furniture,
And the decorations.
balloons in every single color of the rainbow. Not for festive reasons, but to ensure they aren't privileging one part of the color spectrum over another. They're literally trying to be inclusive of the physics of light.
That's exhausting. And Maria tries to start a game with blindfolds.
She calls them universal fun, but then immediately has a crisis of conscience. She wonders aloud if using blindfolds is insensitive to the visually impaired. She puts them on a table and then quickly swipes them off.
But the real tension, the philosophical debate, comes from the phrase, happy birthday.
Yeah, this is where it gets really abstract. Priya freezes and asks the group if the word happy assumes Western emotional norms.
Is happiness a Western construct?
In their minds, maybe expecting happiness is a form of emotional pressure, or maybe it ignores the historical struggle of the global South. They overthink it until the word happy starts to feel oppressive.
And what does Jamal, the actual birthday boy, think of all this?
Jamal, bless him, just wants to have a party. He says, "I'm Nigerian, we party, can we please just dance?" But the group is too deep in their anxiety spiral to even hear him. They just talk over him.
And the gifts continue the trend for the gift exchange.
Oh, yes. Wei gives him a beautiful tea set, but with a long disclaimer that he isn't implying Jamal needs calming or that he's trying to impose Eastern tranquility on him.
And the cake. We have to talk about the birthday cake.
The cake is the centerpiece of the whole disaster. First, the inscription. It reads, "Celebrating you," because happy birthday was deemed too emotionally risky.
And the flavor.
They chose vanilla, not because they thought Jamal likes vanilla, but because chocolate has a colonial history involving cacao plantations. But then they start to second-guess vanilla.
How can you second-guess vanilla?
Because it's the plain option. They start to worry that choosing vanilla is symbolic of a colonizer flavor, of Western erasure of other, more vibrant flavors.
You can't win.
You absolutely cannot. So they have a 45-minute debate about the cake, and they decide to replace it with a fruit platter. But then they worry about the carbon footprint of the fruit and the labor practices on the farms where it was grown.
So no fruit.
No fruit. They replace the fruit platter with a large tub of plain yogurt.
Plain yogurt for a birthday party.
And they stick the candles in the yogurt and sing Happy Neutral Milestone in a mangled, out-of-tune mix of several languages. The imagery of Jamal leaning over to blow out candles stuck in a tub of plain, unsweetened yogurt it's the peak of tragedy comedy.
It's a sad, wet little celebration. It's the compliance exercise version of a party. It's like a party designed by a legal team.
And that energy carries right over into situation 7, which takes this group to the park for the workout woes. They decide to try yoga.
Which, for this group, is a minefield of cultural appropriation anxiety.
A huge minefield. Appropriation, spiritual roots, commercialization, you name it. Priya, being of Indian heritage, agrees to lead it, but she starts by asking for respectful breathing.
Respectful breathing. How do you breathe respectfully?
I have no idea. Don't breathe too colonially, I guess. Don't take up too much of the communal air. It's baffling. And then Alex attempts downward dog and starts trembling.
Because it's a difficult pose.
No, not because his muscles are weak. He's trembling with anxiety because he's afraid he's exoticizing the pose. He feels like an imposter, like he has no right to put his body in that shape.
And the others are just as paralyzed.
Completely. Maria compares the fluid movement to a folk dance she knows, then immediately retracts the comparison. Wei is in lotus pose, but he's worried about inappropriate blending of Indian yoga with Chinese meditation traditions.
And Jamal makes a joke.
He makes a simple, lighthearted joke about it being harder than soccer.
And then he freezes.
Mid-laugh. Because he thinks he's just reinforced African athletic stereotypes. He cuts his own joke off at the knees with a look of horror.
So they have to pivot. They abandon yoga. What do they try next?
They switch to jumping jacks. Simple, universal, right?
I guess so.
But then Alex has a realization. He shouts, "Stop! Jumping jacks are American. They were invented by the U.S. military."
So they're a symbol of militarism and imperialism.
In his mind, yes. So they stop. And they end up just sitting in a circle on the grass, appreciating nature neutrally. They are more sore from indecision than they are from any actual exercise.
Which leads us to situation 8, the holiday card hullabaloo. This is where language itself really starts to break down for them.
They decide they want to send seasonal greeting cards to each other. The key is that they must be free of any specific tradition or belief system.
Okay, let's hear some of the drafts for these cards.
Alex, our accountant, writes a very formal, very safe message. Wishing you a pleasant end-of-year period.
Very catchy, rolls right off the tongue.
But Priya immediately raises an issue. End of year is culturally biased, she argues. It erases holidays like Diwali, which happen earlier in the autumn.
Okay, fair point. What else?
Li Wei, trying to avoid words altogether, just draws a single elegant tea leaf.
And I'm guessing he then worries that's a stereotype.
That's exactly what he asks the group. Is this too Chinese? Am I reducing myself to a beverage? Jamal draws a soccer ball, then worries that sports are exclusionary to the non-athletic members of the group.
And Ahmed has a truly fascinating crisis.
Yes, he wants to use an ancient proverb from his culture, but then he worries that quoting ancient wisdom is a form of appropriating his own heritage for a Western-style greeting card.
That is a fascinating psychological knot to untie, appropriating your own heritage.
It shows how alienated they've become from their own identities. They're viewing their own cultures through the hypercritical lens of a theoretical outside observer.
So they form a review committee for the cards.
A full committee. Words like joy, warmth, and friend are scrutinized. Is joy an unfair emotional expectation? Is friend assuming a level of intimacy that hasn't been explicitly consented to?
So what is the final committee-approved card?
It's a blank white card with just one word printed in the middle. Hello.
No names, no signatures.
No names, no signatures. They mail these cards to each other's apartments, so they each receive 7 anonymous bland notes that just say hello.
It's like receiving a ransom note from a beige room.
Yeah.
There's no warmth, no connection.
And the analysis in the source material for this section is spot on. It says, sensitivity, like seasoning, works best in the right amount. Their overwhelming desire to include everyone makes any form of celebration feel like a legal contract.
It's the paradox of inclusion. By trying to include everyone perfectly, they create an experience that absolutely no one can actually enjoy. It's inclusion by negation, by subtraction.
Exactly. They've celebrated themselves into a corner.
Now, in part 3, we move from events to self-expression, to stories, style, and sound. Situations 9 through 11. Situation 9 is the travel tale tangle.
They all meet at Li Wei's tea shop, and they set a rule beforehand. Travel stories must be framed as learning, not consumption. You can't just say, I went to the beach and it was nice. That's too consumerist.
So Alex starts. He talks about a road trip through the Midwest, but he has to add a disclaimer. Not cowboys. He's actively demythologizing his own home.
Priya talks about visiting the Taj Mahal, but she goes to great lengths to emphasize it purely as a historical architectural site, not as a romantic landmark. She's stripping the beauty and emotion out of it to make it educational and safe.
Li Wei talks about Beijing, but he carefully avoids any ancient China tropes. Maria talks about the beaches in Mexico.
Which immediately triggers Jamal to ask if mentioning beaches implies that all Mexicans just vacation at resorts. Are we reducing the complex nation of Mexico to a tourist destination, he asks.
It's a constant, exhausting deconstruction. The source says specificity becomes the enemy.
That's the key phrase for this whole section. Specificity becomes the enemy. Because if you are specific, you risk falling into a stereotype. So they start describing their travels in the most abstract, bloodless terms imaginable.
Like what?
Movement from point A to point B, or the consumption of regional nourishment.
It sounds like robots talking. I engaged in atmospheric pressure-stabilized movement to a coastal region and absorbed solar radiation for a predetermined period.
It's not far off, and it eventually collapses into them doing silent charades mime to describe their trips because speaking is just too dangerous. Words are loaded, so they revert to gesture, which we already know is a minefield for them.
From stories to style, situation 10 is the fashion faux pas frenzy.
This one had so much potential to be fun. It's a dress-up game night. The theme, everyday attire from your culture.
This sounds great. A chance for everyone to share something personal and beautiful.
It should be, and at first it is. Hiroshi wears a modern yukata-inspired shirt, clarifying it's not traditional. Alex wears jeans and a plaid shirt,
The uniform of the Midwest.
but he's worried. He wonders aloud if he's appropriating the heritage of the Scottish clans by wearing plaid. Priya wears a beautiful salwar kameez, but stresses that it's just comfortable, not a costume. Jamal wears a dashiki, and his first words are, "Please don't exoticize this."
You're all wearing apologies.
Yeah,
And then the compliments start.
and that's where it really unravels. Sophie compliments the vibrant colors of Priya's outfit, and Priya's face falls. She asks, does colors imply the vibrant India stereotype?
Oh, wow. A simple compliment becomes a microaggression.
And then someone mentions that Alex's hoodie is cool, which triggers a 20-minute debate about the appropriation of urban street style. They dissect every single article of clothing until it's meaningless.
So what is the solution here?
Collective surrender. They all agree their cultural clothing is too problematic. They go into their respective rooms and all change into identical, generic, gray sweatsuits that Alex happens to have.
So they end up looking like a minimalist cult.
A minimalist cult that is terrified of offending anyone through fashion. They have completely erased all visual markers of identity in the name of protecting those identities.
Situation 11 is the soundtrack to this cult. The music mix-up mayhem.
It's a playlist party. Everyone brings a song from their culture, and every song is subjected to a rigorous vetting process.
Give me an example.
Jamal wants to play some Afrobeat, but first he has to check with everyone about volume concerns. Is this too loud? Does loud music code as aggressive or unsophisticated?
He's asking for permission to play music at a party.
Priya brings a Bollywood song, but before she plays it, she gives a lecture clarifying that the lyrics are deeply poetic, not just simple dance floor fodder. She has to defend the intellectual merit of the song before anyone can just enjoy it.
And Alex plays some American pop music.
And immediately panics about cultural imperialism. His question is, essentially, is Britney Spears a form of colonization?
They start deconstructing music itself.
They really do. Horn sections are flagged as being loud-coded. Songs with sad lyrics are interrogated for being emotionally manipulative. They debate whether certain instruments are the exclusive cultural property of one group.
So what music is left? What do they actually listen to?
White noise.
White noise.
Specifically, a long recording of rainfall.
But wait, didn't they worry about rain being insensitive to drought regions later?
We'll get to that. For this evening, at least, rainfall is considered technically non-cultural. The party becomes what the text calls a whisper concert of giggles. They're just sitting in a room, swaying gently to the sound of static.
The analysis of this whole section is really profound. The source says, culture is clay, meant to be touched, but they treat it like porcelain.
Yes. They're treating culture as something so fragile and ancient that to interact with it is to break it. But the deep irony is that in trying to honor every difference, they erase all the texture. Everything becomes gray, noise, and abstract movement.
They're protecting the vase so hard they end up smashing it against the wall.
It's a world without edges. And as you said, edges are where the interesting stuff happens. Friction is what creates warmth.
Precisely. No friction, no warmth. Which brings us to part 4 and what the author calls the everyday trifecta. Pets, language, and weather. Things that are supposed to be the safest of safe small talk.
The ultimate elevator conversations, but not for this group. Situation 12 is the pet peeve predicament. They're having a picnic in Central Park.
And the topic is animal companionship stories. Supposedly a safe harbor.
Jamal starts. He talks about his beloved childhood dog, Bello. But then he gets bogged down in terminology. He worries the word mutt is insensitive. And then he feels the need to clarify that not all Nigerians have wild animals as pets.
He's fighting a stereotype that no one in the group even brought up.
He's shadowboxing with a phantom prejudice. Then Priya talks about the street cows in Mumbai.
And she has to clarify the whole sacred cow thing.
Right. She explains that sacred doesn't mean she personally worships every animal. She even offers to rephrase her story and refer to them as neutral herbivores.
Neutral herbivores. That's so romantic.
Layaway talks about his goldfish, but worries that mentioning it might be seen as an imposition of feng shui principles on the group. Sophie talks about her black cat, Etoile, but quickly adds a disclaimer that she is not a French cat lady trope.
And Alex has a hamster.
Named Whiskers. But he panics that the word rodent sounds judgmental. He asks, seriously, is rodent a slur for hamsters?
They just can't stop. It escalates from there.
It does. The conversation shifts to whether the very concept of pet ownership is colonialist. Is keeping an animal in your home a form of slavery?
So what do? How do they resolve this?
They decide to adopt a pet together. A pet that carries no historical baggage. They adopt a rock.
A rock.
A smooth gray rock from the park. They name it Rocky Neutral, and they attach a little paper note to it with a piece of tape.
What does the note say?
Not assuming rock worship in any culture.
And they talk to it.
They role-play apologies to the rock. They say things like, sorry if you're from a mountainous region and we've displaced you. It's reached geological levels of absurdity, but it shows how desperate they are for a connection that carries zero risk. A rock cannot be offended.
Or so they think. Situation 13 is the language lesson laughs.
Another seemingly fun idea, a multilingual phrase exchange. Sophie starts, very humbly, bonjour. Hiroshi follows with a polite but casual arigato.
And Maria tries to repeat it.
She tries, but she mispronounces it. She says something that sounds more like avocado.
It's an honest mistake. It happens when you're learning a new language.
To a normal person, yes. But Hiroshi gets this concerned look on his face and questions if comparing his language to a food item is insensitive. Are you consuming my language? He asks.
And Alex, the only native English speaker, says hello and then has a crisis.
He wonders if this simple act of speaking English is colonizing the room. Is my English drowning out your beautiful diversity?
They worry about tonal correctness, about sounding pretentious, and of course, the yoga studio appropriation of namaste.
So they end up with the same solution as the travel stories. Exaggerated pantomime. The source calls it a silent film directed by a committee.
Which brings us to the final boss of small talk, situation 14, the weather woe workshop.
Weather is the ultimate safe topic. Nice weather we're having. It's the universal filler.
Not for this group. They are sitting in the waiting room of Ahmed's pediatric clinic. It's a rainy day.
And they try to talk about it. Ahmed carefully describes rain in Egypt as refreshing, not biblical. Jamal talks about the Harmattan winds in Nigeria, but stops to do a pronunciation check with the group. Alex describes a Midwest thunderstorm, but worries the word dramatic is an exaggeration.
And then a clap of thunder hits.
A loud clap of thunder. And it makes Jamal ask the question that finally breaks small talk forever. Is complaining about the rain insensitive to people who live in drought-stricken regions?
Is it a form of privilege to be wet?
That's the level they're operating on. So words like nice and beautiful are flagged as hopelessly subjective. Nice for whom? Beautiful by whose standards?
So what is the new, approved, non-judgmental phrase for good weather?
Acceptable atmospheric conditions.
We're having some acceptable atmospheric conditions today. It sounds like a weather report from a dystopia.
It really does. And the insight here from the source is that this is overeducation without trust. They know all the theories, but they don't trust each other. Small talk about pets, about the weather. These are supposed to be bridges between people. They've turned them into battlegrounds.
We've mined the bridges so that no one can cross over to the other side.
Exactly.
We are heading into the final stretch now, part 5. The final frontier's food and tradition. Situation 15 is the recipe roundup ridicule.
They decide to create a collaborative digital cookbook, a collaborative recipe share, but there are rules.
Of course there are.
The recipe must be fusion neutral, it cannot contain any so-called exotic spices, and all ingredients must be universally accessible and affordable.
They start a shared Google Doc for this recipe titled The Safe Shared Stew.
Alex is the first to contribute. He adds potatoes, but he adds a comment in the Google Doc. Disclaimer. This is not intended as a reference to the Irish famine.
He enters a potato into a spreadsheet and feels the entire weight of Irish history on his shoulders.
Priya adds lentils, but with her own disclaimer. This should not be interpreted as poor man's food or reinforce economic stereotypes. Leeway adds ginger.
But worry's root is a loaded term.
He literally does. Worry's root is too elemental to something. Maria adds tomatoes, but then spirals, worrying about the tomato's history as a New World crop and its role in colonization. Is the tomato an imperialist fruit? Is a question she genuinely poses.
Sophie humbly adds a sprig of thyme. Hiroshi adds carrots, but then worries the color orange might offend anyone with Dutch heritage.
And Ahmed adds garlic, but with a firm note in all caps. No vampire jokes, please.
So after they've added all these disclaimers and ingredients, the subtraction begins.
The Great Erasure. Water is flagged as a potentially problematic ingredient. Is hydration a human right? And is including it in a recipe a form of appropriation? Salt is removed because it assumes access to the sea, which is a geographical privilege.
So what is the final recipe that they all agree on?
Are you ready for this? The final recipe is boiled water, optional.
Boiled water, optional.
And they actually make it. They get together and boil some water, and they toast with mugs of hot water, but not before apologizing to anyone from cold climate cultures for whom hot water might be a painful reminder of their environment. They rename the final dish sensitivity soup. Zero offense, zero taste.
That is the perfect metaphor for this entire saga.
Yeah.
Sensitivity soup. It's warm, it's wet, and it nourishes absolutely no one. It's just nothing.
And that nothingness brings us to the grand finale, Situation 16, the holiday traditions hullabaloo.
They have one last gathering. The word holiday is banned, of course. This is the seasonal sharing circle.
The goal is for each person to share a personal custom from their background, stripped of all religious or cultural specificity.
Alex shares the custom of gift exchange, but clarifies it's about thoughtfulness, not capitalism. Priya shares the tradition of lighting Diwali lamps, but emphasizes it's about illumination, not imposing Hindu vibes.
Li Wei talks about red envelopes, but without mentioning luck or dragon dances. Is luck a loaded concept?
Maria talks about posadas and piñatas.
But she has to clarify that piñatas are not a celebration of violence. We hit them with love, she explains. Jamal talks about the feasting associated with Eid, but then stops himself, worried that the word feasting is insensitive to those who may be fasting or food insecure.
So they erase it all, they strip it down.
Gifts become thought exchanges, lights become illumination moments, food becomes nourishment opportunities.
And the conclusion of this whole journey, the final state they achieve.
The great neutral nada. That's where it ends. The final scene described is them all sitting quietly in a circle, just nodding at each other in universal acknowledgement, toasting with glasses of room temperature water.
Room temperature, of course, because hot might offend cold cultures and cold might offend hot cultures. It's the ultimate equilibrium.
It's the ultimate equilibrium of nothingness. They've finally achieved perfect, harmless, meaningless silence.
So let's try to synthesize this whole saga. We've gone from an awkward potluck with too many disclaimers to literally worshiping a rock and drinking optional boiled water.
It's a tragic trajectory, really, but it's also a powerful parable. The core philosophy here, the lesson, is that the group learned every theory and every footnote about cultural sensitivity. They read all the right books, but they forgot the rhythm of humanity.
They forgot how to dance with each other.
That's a perfect way to put it. Yes, true respect isn't about erasing yourself or erasing others to avoid a mistake. It requires trust. The core insight from the source is that curiosity is not conquest, and joy is not theft.
That is a beautiful line. Joy is not theft. Say more about that.
It means that just because you are enjoying something from another culture, the food, the music, the stories, doesn't mean you are stealing it. It's not a zero-sum game. Appreciation, when it's genuine, is a form of love. It's connection.
And the source material has this wonderful concluding line. It says, culture survives not because it is protected from touch, but because it is passed imperfectly from hand to hand.
Passed imperfectly. That's the whole key. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to pronounce arigato like avocado sometimes.
And we might, if we're very clumsy, accidentally headbutt our Japanese friend while trying to be respectful.
Hopefully not that. But the point is, the connection is worth the risk of awkwardness. The real texture of life is in the friction. It's in the messy, imperfect human moments.
The author says the sweet spot is somewhere between the yogurt cake and joyful chaos.
And maybe the most inclusive thing you can actually do is just eat the biryani, accept the bottle of wine, watch the movie without pausing it, and just say thank you.
Simple gratitude, not complex theory.
Simple gratitude beats complex anxiety every single time. It's the one universal language that actually works.
So here's a final provocative thought for you listening at home. In your own life, in your own interactions, where have you let the fear of being wrong stop you from being real?
Are you, in some small way, living in your own version of the great neutral nada?
Are you serving sensitivity soup at your dinner parties, even if it's just metaphorically?
It's worth asking, are you connecting, or are you just complying with a set of unwritten rules you've imposed on yourself?
On that note, I'll leave you with the final sign-off, echoing the source material itself. Nice weather we're having.
And mean it.
Exactly. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.